wondering why I'm wearing such a funny hat. I always wear this hat. So much, it's a part of my name now. My friends, my very, very best friends, they just call me Rose the Hat.
It looks like a magician's hat.
It is. It's a magic hat.
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong.
All right.
And that was Rose the Hat, right? Rose the Hat?
Yeah.
Good job. David, you're supposed to be here for this.
I'm actually looking up just to make sure
He's
I
not-
have the right one.
That's not David, it's Crow Daddy.
Crow Daddy is the worst name. Can we?
But I love it. But I love it.
hate
I
it.
love it.
That's your opinion, Crow Daddy.
Dang it.
I'm Reese. Across from me we have,
David.
to his left,
Irina.
and to my right,
Well, you can call me Rose.
also known as...
Noah.
You sound like an old country singer.
You call me Rose.
You don't often impersonate female characters, so this was an interesting change for you.
Yeah, I was feeling more in tune with my feminine side.
That's good. That's good. We all should. And a man we sense from 1,500 miles away due to his, quote, big steam, we have...
Real big steam.
AJ.
I can feel your power, dude.
And we're referencing, of course, Dr. Sleep, the movie we're talking about tonight, or today, whenever you may be listening. It's a movie that came out in 2019, and it's directed by Mike Flanagan, who also directed a whole slew of horror films: Oculus, Hush, Ouija, Origin of Evil, Gerald's Game, another Stephen King adaptation, and The Haunting of Hill House, along with The Haunting of Bly Manor. Yeah, this guy gets around. He's done a whole... He's one of the kind of rising stars of horror right now.
An artistic master, if you will.
Yes, he's... I actually don't think he's directed a bad horror movie yet. Like, I think probably his greatest accomplishment, aside from things like Dr. Sleep and Gerald's Game, things that should not work on screen, is Ouija Origin of Evil. If you remember, the original Ouija movie was just this cash grab horror movie, that a typical, like, hey, this is what high schoolers go to see.
That's what I thought
Exactly.
it was.
At midnight. But it got terrible reviews. But then he came in, and because the first one did good business, it was one of those low-budget horror movies that had a huge return, because they always do, because they cost nothing, and everyone buys a ticket to it. But he came in and directed the prequel, Ouija Origin of Evil, and it's actually good. Like, it is a good movie. Like, have you seen it, David?
No, I haven't.
Exactly.
But I did host a Super Smash Brothers Melee tournament that I called Ouija board, but spelled like Luigi.
Yeah, that's
Pretty good.
It's kind of close.
That's helpful.
Sure. But no, watch it. I actually recommend it. It's not like a perfect horror movie, but to have someone come in and direct a movie about or a Ouija board and have it be good.
A Luigi
And not
board.
even the original, a prequel
Yeah.
of a pre-existing film.
I honestly think this director just decides he's going to challenge himself. Like, yep, I'm going to make
He
a
does.
prequel to a Ouija board-based horror movie.
I think it's also that he just, every interview I see him in, he really loves horror films. Like, he
Yes.
loves making horror films.
No, he lives and
so,
breathes it.
like, it's not just one of those, directors coming up like, oh, let's just make another horror film because everybody eats that up.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I actually want to make this good.
I don't know what I expected when I was looking up sort of the making of Dr. Sleep, but when they was going over his vision and him on screen, he's not what I expected. He has this like childlike energy.
Oh yeah, he's a total film nerd.
He's like just like giddy. He's like holding an axe. He's like, this was so much fun. This is what I grew up with. This is my favorite. I'm like, wow, okay.
Hey, there you go. But yeah, to also come in and direct a sequel to The Shining, that's something that you're just asking for failure.
You gotta have
there.
balls to
like,
do that.
Big
like, you
balls.
better bring it. That's on an equal level to directing a sequel to Blade Runner, which we saw.
Yep.
Blade Runner 2049. Yeah, I'm impressed by this guy, and I'm always intrigued to see what he does next. I think he has another Stephen King project lined up that'll make it his third adaptation. Gerald's Game. Have you all seen that one?
I haven't,
I did.
but I did see clips of it. I was like, I've seen these clips before.
I heard there's a hand degloving scene,
Yeah.
so
No,
like,
I'm surprised.
That's the thing.
I'm surprised you've seen
looking
it,
to
Noah.
see.
Yeah.
Is this like a date night thing?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was real fun.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic.
It was, well, it was all right.
We're not we're not
Be
rating Gerald's
honest.
Game right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I do remember though when I watched The Haunting of Hill House, and if anyone knows, I'm not a horror person. Irina encouraged me to watch The Haunting
Oh
of Hill House.
gosh, because I loved it so much.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the fact that she was so passionate, but I got super invested, but I was also terrified at the same time. So I was like, I hate this, I love it, I hate it. But I thought that was the first thing I watched by this director. And then
Oculus is
Oculus was the one later when I looked at. I was like, he did that.
Yep.
I hated that movie.
But because it was so terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was good.
Yeah, not for the squeamish. This movie, Dr. Sleep, stars Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson, Kylie Curran, Carl Lundbley, Zahn McClarnon,
Say that again. I want to hear you say it again.
Zahn McClarnon, Emily Ellen Lind, that is a tongue twister, Bruce Greenwood, Jocelyn Donahue, and Cliff Curtis. Flawless execution.
Yeah.
With a screenplay by Mike Flanagan, and it is based on Dr. Sleep by Stephen King. And this is a book that might not have existed, except fans kept pestering Stephen King about, hey, where's that sequel to The Shining? I want to see what happens with Danny. And finally, in 2013, Dr. Sleep was written, published, came out. I haven't read the book. Have any of y'all?
No, but fun fact, when that came out, we were visiting the Stanley Hotel as a group, I remember, actually. Like, the whole of us here.
Yep.
And they had that there at the Stanley Hotel. The book,
yeah,
they
I
were
remember
showing
that.
it off.
That's your story.
That's it.
You saw the book.
I thought
I saw
you
the
know
book
what?
at the Stanley Hotel.
It exists. I saw it physically in front of me.
Funny enough, that's when I read The Shining, was that vacation.
I remember
I
that,
debated getting it.
So
but
all
I
of
didn't.
you, what you've heard, it exists. It's out there.
I've seen it.
I've seen it.
From what I've heard, though, it is a good book. There are moments, though, that are kind of, from, again, what I've heard, it is a bit, like, fan servicey. Like, it's kind of beholden to The Shining. There's a lot of kind of callbacks and like, retcons that people don't like as much, but it's still seen and regarded as a good work and something that people are glad exists versus does not exist.
It's kind of like Wicked in terms of that and its connection to The Wizard of Oz and how it retcons some of the characters, and I hated that. So I probably will feel the same way.
Oh, wait, the evil person was actually the good guy? What?
Stupid. Subverting expectations.
For those new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, Irina, had you seen Dr. Sleep before this episode?
You know, it's...
Before the prep for this episode, I should
Right.
say, because obviously we all saw it before the episode.
I have not seen it. I'm
Yeah, I
going
didn't see it. Just going blind.
I did. Unfortunately, I didn't get to enjoy it in a theatrical experience or just sitting down to fully immerse. It was one of those things where someone was watching it in a room and I was only able to be there for maybe the middle of the film and then had to leave or something. So
That's not the ideal way to watch it.
No, it's not. You shouldn't watch any movie like that. It will taint your expectation of it. So not the best introduction to the film. So I only saw part of it.
So, a little anecdote to that. I did see this in the theater. I'll just get mine out of the way. I did see this in the theater, and after I got out of the screening, I won't reveal what I thought about the film, but the one thing I thought was like, Irina, you might like this, but knowing you're going to be very uncomfortable because of the overuse of heartbeat in the soundtrack.
yeah.
Like there is so much heartbeat
I don't
in
know
the
if
soundtrack.
anybody else feels this way, but I hate hearing heartbeats on anything because it makes me really self-conscious about my own heartbeat and
Yeah.
Can
like
confirm.
whether it's matching up or
Yeah.
faster or slower than what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and that like reminds me of a conversation I had recently about how really percussive beats can somewhat control your heart rate.
Oh,
too.
I hate that.
Yeah.
They can?
Just a little bit.
No!
Marina,
You know how
Why did
she's
you tell
she's
me
tucking
that?
her head inside her shirt. Like,
Like,
no.
Obvious
it's-
solution is just to not to have a heart, so
Yeah, that
Cut it out.
yeah.
no worries over here.
It'll be beaten under the floorboards then.
Ew.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Nice.
Monkey fist or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Telltale Heart, dude.
That's the one.
And the other one was Monkey's Paw.
Oh, that's the one. Remember that beautiful Edgar Allan
Poem.
Poe story about the heart under the wood? Monkey's fist,
Monkey
I think.
Fist.
Sounds like a really bad kung fu movie.
Or a really
No, it's an
good
Alan
kung
Parsons
fu
song.
movie.
Oh man.
Noah, how about you?
I actually watched this less than a year ago. I had a good time with it. I liked the movie. I
you
was
wa-
eating some Kirby Lane or something similar.
That's
to
funny
that.
that that's what you remember about it. Like I had my
was
Kirby
eating some
Lane.
Kirby
Hey
Lane.
man,
It's all about the setup for him.
It is
Like, you have to have it.
actually the setup matters.
Did you have coffee too?
No, I didn't have coffee. I didn't bring
Gatorade?
Kirby coffee back. It
And
was
for,
just
for listeners that
it's
don't know,
comfort food.
Kirby Lane is a Texas diner. They
Austin
serve,
specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More. Yeah, I think they've
It
expanded.
it originated in Austin, so if it's expanded, this
but yeah,
is where it's from.
Yeah, it's just a 24-hour diner. They serve breakfast and lunch and dinner. Comfort.
Go
This is
visit.
very important stuff.
I wanted to add context to the, just add texture to
They
the
are not a
story.
sponsor.
Make sure to get the David's enchiladas.
David.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
No, I had not seen this. It's funny enough. I gotta stop saying that. I feel like I say that a lot. Anyway, I did see the trailer for this, and I thought I need to see this, which is a very rare occasion for me in horror movies. I know.
And you did see it.
Yes, I ended up having to watch it later for this, and the other day I sat down to watch it by myself at like midnight.
Not a good
It
idea.
was a stupid idea.
It's a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, I didn't realize, and so I stopped at 30 minutes in and realized I'm going to get back to this later when
Yeah.
it's not dark and scary.
Good call. Good call. I think did it embolden you to watch it more or scare you when I told you it was by the guy who did Oculus?
Well, I knew the guy who did Oculus at this point did Haunting of Hill House, and I loved that, so didn't really do much.
Didn't phase you.
Nah.
You just like, I'm gonna throw it on.
Yeah.
AJ, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's got iconic imagery in it. You know, I was actually kind of surprised when I saw trailers that after all their feuding that Stephen King and had let Kubrick do another of his movies. So,
I'm going through my Kubricks. Let's
yeah, I mean,
watch that.
everyone.
Oh,
You know, just
yeah, Doctor
that image of-
Strangelove. You watched
yeah,
Doctor Strangelove.
Oh my
Slim Pickens
gosh.
riding the bomb down.
Yep. So yeah, it's got Doctor in the title. I could understand your confusion, AJ, but that is not the film we watched. Moving on. David, do you want to give us that call to action?
Yeah, the one that everybody looks for. All right.
The one that everyone looks for?
Yeah, everyone's looking for me to do this.
He's getting in the zone.
All right, hold on.
I say they're like listening for you to do it.
I'm
anticipating.
I'm astral projecting myself. I'm floating above the clouds. I'm heading to Massachusetts. No, Vermont. Somewhere
The
on the East
theater.
Coast. And I see a man named Steve eating ramen. He's eating ramen, and while he's listening to this, Steve, give us a 5-star on Apple. Do it.
Also, ask him to tell all of his friends.
He doesn't want to. Look, hold on. I gotta fight. Hold on. No, I got his hand trapped. His hand. I ripped the skin off it. He's doing it. He's doing it very quickly now. He realizes that he needs to give us 5 stars. He also realized that we are on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we also have a large presence across all the major podcast platforms. There you go.
Don't make us psychically torture you to like us.
I'm tired of doing it.
Yes.
We should, every time we do this, we should call out a specific name and tell them specifically to subscribe.
Also, hopefully by the time you're hearing this, we will have a Patreon up. No promises, though, but there will be cool, fun content on there, 2 awards shows.
We have content.
Yeah, other stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for that, or keep an eye out for that.
Get hype.
Get hype. Are you ready to get into that story, you guys?
Yeah.
It's a hungry place. A dangerous place.
These people, they hurt people like us.
These empty devils, they'll eat what shines. And they've noticed that little girl.
Wow. Hi there.
Get out of my head! Get out!
I haven't felt power like that in so long.
They're coming. Where are we going?
There's a place. You sure you want to do this?
I'm ready.
Yes, you run, dear. And then I will find you. And you will scream for years.
Come and play with us forever and ever.
It's 2011, and Dan Torrance is still suffering from the events of the Overlook Hotel, seeing visions, drinking, and making generally bad decisions, all to suppress his shining. After a really rough day, he decides it's time to recover by going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and he also starts work at a hospice where he helps put people to sleep. During this time, Rose and her band of weird gypsies extend their lives by consuming steam, an ethereal essence exuded by those with the shining when they are put through intense, often gratuitous, suffering. 8 years later, that same group, known as the True Knot, are starving, and they torture a young boy for what little dregs they can consume. But this is sensed by Abra, a young girl whose shining is stupendous. She shines even brighter than Dan. After sensing the boy's death, Abra alerts Dan telepathically. Wow. Abra alerts Dan telepathically, and when they meet, she informs him of True Knot. Rose astral projects and hurts herself in her confusion, then sends her people out to cordially invite Abra to give them her steam.
Wasn't it Abra who hurt Rose?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said hurts herself.
Oh,
in
I
confusion.
did, but it was a really good opportunity. Oh.
You couldn't pass it up.
Well, don't you hate it when you're searching for Abra for so long and Abra uses teleport?
Exactly. It's the worst.
Honestly, I only have 5 Pokeballs, and none of them work. It's a bunch of bullshit.
All right, Dr. Sleep, guys. This is a Herculean task for Mike Flanagan. The movie opens on... it's kind of an overhead or a top-down shot of kind of this forested park area. And we have this little girl who likes flowers making her way to the lakeside. And we meet Rose the Hat. This is kind of like this movie telling you that it's not going to be exactly like The Shining.
It's funny you say that, because in my notes, one of the first things I say is, that's not The Shining.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think that's a smart choice, because when this movie dips into, aping The Shining, I think it is less strong. So it's smart to establish itself as this other thing, instead of completely bookending the movie with, hey, here's a Shining opening, even though we do get one right after this, and then here's a Shining ending. What did y'all think about this kind of opening sequence? I thought it was horrifying as well, but go ahead.
I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed the opening, but also I wanted to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this holds a little more true to the books than actually the first one does, as far as The Shine goes.
As far as The Shine goes?
Like The Shining.
Yeah.
Like if I recall, the book is a little more fantastical.
Which book
than...
are we trying to talk about here? Because the original Shine, Stephen King kind of changed the rules.
So here's the thing. Mike Flanagan got the blessing of Stephen King to do this movie, and I think that came with the added bonus, or not bonus, but with the promise that this would have more of the feel of the Shining book, which Stephen King thinks is more hopeful than the original movie portrayed. This one has more of a feeling of like redemption than The Shining did, and I think, and I haven't read The Shining, but from what Stephen King has said is there is more of a glimmer of hope in that movie versus just the complete sense of dread.
A little bit.
So thematically, I think this is closer to what Stephen King would have imagined.
Right.
Yeah, on an emotional and thematic level.
That's kind of like what I was getting at.
But The Shine itself is what you're asking, and I think that The Shine is more true to the new book, but not the original. But this movie kind of delves into both worlds, because Mike Flanagan decided to do a somersault after doing a backflip off a diving board. Like I don't even know if that's not an
People
expression.
can do that,
but
hey, you made it up. It's good.
You get it. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah. So let's talk about the opening scene, though. What do you think? Like, do you like this opening? Do we like Rose the Hat in this scene?
I love Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah.
All of her mannerisms are just so interesting to watch. And something I always find to be one of the most threatening things, and if you go back to It Too, one of the more frightening moments for me was it actually being empathetic, you know, before he devours.
Under the bleacher scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's similar in this, she's actually really, really good with kids. And it shows, like, she actually seems friendly.
Yeah.
But then having that quick turnaround is always, gives me goosebumps.
The scariest scene is when the girl looks off for a second and sees all of the other people from the True Knot standing at just like in the woods, just kind of visible. And she's like, "Oh, don't worry, these are my friends. These are my friends. Don't worry about them." But you can tell the girl is thinking like, "Okay,
I'm very much worried about them."
I'm starting to be a little concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie goes to some dark places, and it definitely lets you know that it will be going there from the get-go. But then we lead into kind of, all right, this is a Shining sequel. We get our recastings of Danny and Wendy. I was less hot on all this stuff. Like, thankfully it's brief, but I think, and I don't have the actress in front of me, but the woman who portrays Wendy is not very good.
No. She was in Starry Eyes or something like that.
In this?
I can't remember her name, though.
Yeah, the problem is she's trying to do a Shelley Duvall when she should just, I think if you're recasting, you should just do your own thing, almost. Like, don't try to do an exact one-for-one impersonation.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
Apparently that was like...
fine.
That was just a... I cannot imagine the struggle of being an actor portraying someone that is in a very iconic film, but also trying to make it your own and pretend that you haven't seen that movie.
Yeah.
So
Actress's name is Alex Esso.
Alex Esso, that's right.
Oh, can I backtrack real quick? I totally forgot. The girl that gets killed at the beginning,
Violet.
yes, is the same girl that got killed by Pennywise.
Yeah.
Oh.
She was also in Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, she has the worst resume.
She does. Get killed off.
Actually, and she kills herself in The Haunting of Hill House, or at least her older version does.
Yeah.
Sorry to derail that for a second. For me, though, anytime this movie tries to be The Shining, I think it's not bad, but when it forces you to look at it against Stanley Kubrick, where Stanley Kubrick is a perfectionist. And Mike Flanagan, as good as he is, I feel like it's not quite up to his level. So you just see that it's inferior.
Yeah.
And again, it's not bad, but all this stuff with the young Danny and Wendy, I was less into.
I agree.
Even though, like, I think it's cool when he's kind of decides to face the old lady in the tub, closes the door behind him, and you get to learn, like, how he's been dealing with, like, they have these departments in their mind where they, or compartments in their mind where they put the evils or the demons. It's not very well explained, except when what's his name, Dick Halloran comes in and kind of, lays everything out. By the way, I really like that scene. They picked a really good actor to kind of
Halloran.
Portray that character. Of all the younger or the flashback scenes, that's the best one for me.
That's in my notes too. You and I are on a very similar trajectory here, Reese, because I hated, upon first watch, the reshot Shining scenes. It pulls you out of it. I think that's the issue. Is that when you're comparing it, especially if you've seen both, like maybe if you didn't watch the first one on its own, this could hold its own. But if you've seen The Shining at all, it just pulls you right out of the movie.
Yeah, and that's Carl Lumbly, by the way, is the name of the actor portraying Dick Halloran.
But I agree too, because I thought Dick was really good in this.
Can we acknowledge that you said it was Carl Lumbly, and right at that point, like, there's a loud crack of thunder.
Yeah. Carl Lumbly. AJ, let me catch up with you. How are you feeling at this point in the film?
I was drawn in by Rose. I mean, her character is pretty magnetic. So, but also, the predatorial aspect of it. I didn't so much get the drift of the Shining feel right off the bat. I guess because it's more external. And you notice the stylistic choices, of course, but performance-wise, Ferguson and McGregor, I'm always, on board with that. They did a good job of hooking me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of fast forward to catch up with Danny. He is kind of slumming it a little bit, not having the best time, ignoring the shine, doing some pretty bad deeds.
Numbing his shine.
Dirty deeds.
Dirty deeds.
This is not
Paying
Maximum
homage
Overdrive.
to the author.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
All right, so Ewan McGregor as Danny, completely different than, you would imagine this little kid to grow up to be, but totally understandable based off the trauma that, was inflicted on him. I think Ewan McGregor does an excellent job in this movie. I think he's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
This is like, I compare him almost to James McAvoy in It Chapter 2 as that was a fail, in my opinion, as doing an older version of a character, whereas this was like, yes, you made it your own, you were leading this movie, and I'm in this journey with you.
Interesting.
Did y'all enjoy Ewan McGregor in this movie?
He always does a good job.
Yeah.
No, I have not ever seen something where he was bad.
Yeah.
Well, he takes all of his work very seriously. Yeah. So he's one of those, like, very professional actors. You know what I'm talking about? Where he's really trying to be engaged in the work. I'm pretty sure he had read The Shining as well and was really trying to get in the mindset of, watching Danny Torrance, both from the book perspective and the film The Shining, and trying to kind of encapsulate what that would be as represented by an adult. So he definitely captures that kind of like sadness in the eyes, like
and
in
regret,
everything he does. Yeah.
I love that the scene as he leaves that lady's apartment where you can tell he's going through this dilemma of like, oh, what do I do? She took my money, but I need this.
Yeah.
Like and then that haunts him later on. Like it's like, oh, now he that's a part of him as well.
Right.
That something else that he has to compartmentalize quite literally. What happened to that woman and that boy? What if they're dead? What if they're not? Like, I don't think it ever confirms one way or another what happened to them.
Actually,
does it?
Yeah, she's dead.
No, you see that scene, but it doesn't actually.
I think that's his shine.
No, it is his shine. She's dead, like 100%, and the baby is dead.
See, I thought it was just like I thought it was haunting him. Like that was the evil telling him that that's what happened.
I mean, it was, but in a very literal sense.
See, I don't think she died.
No, I've looked this up. She did die.
Okay.
So, we're coming to the issue of watching this as a film without having read the book too, where I think the film is more catered to those that have read the story already. You can watch it without having read anything, but you do feel like you're left out of the loop a little bit without any real answer. And you could also say for The Shining that you are left out of the loop, but that's intentional. It's meant as a playing mind games, basically. This one, you don't get the same feeling. It's more like, I think there's a story that I'm not seeing on the surface that I should have come in with notes for or something.
Yeah.
What if this is like The Sixth Sense and Danny is dead? This is all from Abra's mind.
Oh.
Hang in tight, AJ.
Look at
We got a
that.
spot for you there.
David, did you do any conspiracy research for this one?
Only my own.
Oh, okay.
Only my own.
Spoiler alert for Sixth Sense, by the way.
Yeah. If people haven't seen Sixth Sense yet.
Damn you, M. Night Shyamalan.
That was what, 1999? Come on, guys.
Dude, it is getting to that time now where people won't know that spoiler.
I think you still know the line, though, I see dead people. Like, no one's ever going to forget that.
No, like, I bet you if you ask the average teenager these days, they won't even know anything about that.
Well, also,
Don't scare me like that.
Lonely Island has spoiled listeners for, however long that song has been out.
That's true.
Wait,
I don't remember.
Lonely Island?
Yeah. Remember when Bruce Willis died at the end of Sixth Sense?
Oh.
Except it wasn't at the end. He had always been dead.
Yeah.
All right, so Danny meets up with Cliff Curtis. What's his actual name, though?
The guy from Die Hard.
Yeah, Billy Freeman. Mm-hmm. I like this actor. Whenever I see him, I'm always like, that's a guy I like.
He's just such a good spirit.
Yeah.
This was one of those scenarios where I was like, you have this really good person right here, and all he does is just kind of show up and go like, oh no, I'm here for you. And then often dies. I mean, we're not there yet, but like...
I know what you mean, because I love the actor, and his performance isn't bad. I actually would say it's very good.
No, it's actually good.
Yeah, I know. I agree. But it's... the way they kind of... maybe it's the fact that we watched the theatrical cut. Maybe the extended director's cut will fix this, but it's a very flat role. It's very flat.
I disagree.
What were you saying?
Okay.
I also disagree.
Okay.
I think he did a good job at subtly balancing or grounding out, the sobriety aspect of things with, it embodied the AA without being too cliche AA.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of brought him as the mortal human good.
Yeah, and his role isn't one that demands multiple layers. He's serving the purpose that he's meant to serve.
That's fair.
No, that's true, but I don't think we're this far yet, but it was... my issue isn't so much in this part here. This is where I was feeling like, oh, good, you get that, kind of that bonding between people who are kind of now like brothers because they have similar backgrounds or they have similar struggles that they're working out together. And, he needs that accountability buddy.
Yeah.
And then that just felt like it was cut down too early.
Yeah. I really like their male bondage.
Wow.
Male bonding?
Yes. Male bonding.
I thought that was an intentional joke.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, digging up dead bodies, don't kink shame.
Oh, no.
Crap. But, yeah, he meets Billy, and then we fast forward kind of 8 years later, and he's really progressed. Danny he's not completely recovered. He still has inner demons and all that, but he's one with the community. He's kind of reformed. It's a much better outlook for him. And now he's working at this a hospice care area. Yeah. This is one of my kind of favorite little segments of this movie.
Yeah.
Just with the cat and how just the role he's taken on, where he just sits by people's bedside.
It's a good guy, Grim Reaper.
Yeah, comforts them, and the cat's just kind of there. This is the part of the movie that felt the most like Stephen King to me.
Agreed.
Weirdly.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, it's
The Community.
It's kind of spooky, but it has heart, and there's it's not just trying to scare you, but there's something just there's something more to these scenes that I really enjoyed them.
It's a creepy wholesome.
Yeah,
creepy wholesome.
I don't understand why those go together.
That is the King
here,
way.
And that cat is adorable.
Well,
I love that cat.
there was an interview actually that was with Mike Flanagan and Stephen King together. They were sitting and answering questions, and one of the comments that Stephen King made in response to something was that he felt that most horror writers and directors end up avoiding what you're saying, the wholesome factor, the warmth and the good.
Yeah.
For the sake of just having horror and devastation and gore and grime.
Shock value.
And he said, like, the horror is diminished when you don't have that balance.
Yeah.
So
that's
yeah.
I was going to say, I think I actually remember the latter half of that interview where I think Stephen King specifically says you cannot have horror without love.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a really good rule to live by in horror that I feel like is overlooked a lot.
And a great quote.
I honestly think horror movies get away with more of the demented things that happen within them when they do counterbalance it with heart. Like, this movie has one of the most effed up scenes I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
And we know...
we all know the scene.
Everyone knows.
But yet, it also has warmth to it. Like, I weirdly think of this movie warmer than I do colder.
Yeah.
Like The Shining.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not as
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. And I think or I do know, I guess. It's
Stephen
just 'cause,
King effect.
Yeah, it's the Stephen King effect. Even though it has a scene that is arguably more traumatizing than anything that happened in The Shining. But okay, where were we? Hospice.
Yes.
This is where Abra comes in. She's sensed that something has happened. Or no. Sorry, she talks to him 8 years before. They kind of have a correspondence.
She has
on
the birthday party.
Yeah, the chalkboard. And then she comes back to him 8 years later after the baseball boy is killed. So before we get into Abra, let's talk about this insanely crazy scene with the True Knot. We can kind of get into the True Knot and this scene itself. Am I wrong, David? You look like you're...
I'm trying to remember the order of things. And
We're not going to be able to hit everything.
No,
so.
I know. I think one of the main things that I think we should touch on, I just don't know if it happened before or after this point, which is bringing on Snakebite Annie.
That happened before. That happened too. So we can let's have a True Knot conversation, and we can talk about Snakebite.
That's good.
Bite Annie. It's a hard thing.
I'm gonna double check. Is it Annie?
Something like that.
You're right.
All right. So let's talk about the True Knot. We've already been introduced to Rose the Hat, and now we're getting our full-on kind of inside look as to how this group works. And that is through this kind of it's almost like a recruiting that they're doing. They see this girl who obviously has some sort of powers in this theater, like power of persuasion, I guess, just by saying something,
It's like
someone will listen.
hypnotism.
And you kind of learn that through this, that the True Knot, if someone has shining, but not like a power that they they could use in their own team, they will decide to consume that person. But
Or
if
if
they have,
they're too old.
But if they have a power that they feel like they can use to acquire more people that shine to consume, then they're going to recruit that person.
Yeah.
And Snakebite Annie is one
Red
of the...
Rover,
Red Rover, let Annie come over.
Yes. So let's discuss this opening scene, this theater scene, and then let's talk about the True Knot after that. David, what'd you think of all this?
So, I think, just to clarify my perspective upon the first and second watch, I was very uninvested the first 30 minutes I watched this. I was very uncaptivated. I liked the intro with Rose, but I was very off-put by most of it, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And rewatching it, I went in with that same mindset, right? So I was like, I'm going to hate this movie. And then it just like slowly lulled me into liking it, and I don't know where it was.
Yeah.
But that Andy scene is one I remember being intrigued by. So it's somewhere around this point, I think. And the fact that you have somebody who has a mind control-ish power kind of breaks what I thought The Shine was.
It's like an X-Men movie.
Exactly. It's an origin. It's an origin story. And we have multiple people with different sort of variations of The Shine.
Yeah.
And I like that. And they're also vampires. So.
Yeah, I like when this movie does its own world building that doesn't seem beholden to The Shining.
Yeah.
Like it's its own thing. And that's when it's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
But the True Knot is something. Let's talk about it.
One of the things that I did have issues with Andy is the fact that she seemed like a good person, and then she's very much not. So I don't know where that...
Oh, yeah, not at all.
Vindictive. And I think with her transformation, there's kind of this understanding that side of her is just enhanced. And you know how like the first thing she says when she awakens after being turned, she says, "Am I human?" And Rose says, "Do you care?" And I think that is the point, is they're not human anymore.
They also
and
got her
it doesn't matter.
at a really impressionable age of 15.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was an intentional choice where it's
Yeah.
like, maybe this girl was trying to, stop bad people, but you
Hers
got her at a
was-
very influential time
Hers
where
was
she's...
some kind of like twisted vigilante justice thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Mike Flanagan and whoever the cinematographer is get the best visual work out of this group. There's one shot in this movie that is so cool. I think it's implemented twice, actually, but it's a top-down shot of the group getting in their caravan and just moving from one location to the other.
Yeah.
And it's like a uncoiling and coiling snake that is just on to the next target. And I think that is so symbolically cool of what the True Knot is. It's just this roving band of people they're just so detached from, society. They've been around for so long, they don't care about human life anymore. It's just consume.
Yeah.
And
on to the next thing.
yes, and it's so effectively done. I think that's one of the best things about this movie, this group. They're a constant threat. I'm always concerned about what's going on with them, even when we're back with Danny. These two groups are eventually going to convene at some point.
Yeah. The nice thing too is that there are so many times that people try to revisit the concept of vampires, which they very much are, but they're definitely unique in their portrayal, where I even hesitate to call them vampires.
They're vampiric
yes. in nature.
Yes.
In the action of soul-sucking and
Living.
devouring life. But it's not... they've managed to avoid the stereotypes.
Yes. The cinematographer, by the way, is Michael Fimognan. Michael Fimognari. Sorry.
They
There's a
do
lot
this
of
to you on
interesting
purpose,
names. I know. They create these names on purpose. They're auto-generated to mess me up. Just wanted to give him a little credit there. I think this movie is shot beautifully.
Oh, yeah, it is.
All right, so this kind of culminates in the baseball kids, Jacob Tremblay's killing. which is so like visceral, graphic, and disturbing.
This child actor, I'm pretty sure, is from another planet.
Yeah.
Because I think Rebecca Ferguson was describing his attitude on set, where he was like, apparently he had been practicing on the way over or something. Like he was getting ready for it, and he just dropped down and started making these really like guttural kind of pig squealing noises. And she was unnerved by that. She thought she was going to handle it professionally, but she just like started weeping. And so many people on set could not like focus.
No, I got to give this kid so much credit. And he's actually a fairly popular child actor.
Yeah, he is.
Jacob Tremblay, though, he really sells it. For a kid who only has maybe 3 to 4 minutes in this movie, he's one of the most memorable parts of the whole thing. Like, he was like, okay, this is my time to shine. I'm going to shine.
There you go. He had a blast doing it, apparently. Like, he just got up after he got a drink or something. Like, it was no big deal. And it was just,
I remember.
It's insane.
I can't remember. I think it was the director, but he was describing how all the vampires or like the knot were preparing for the scene. And they're like, oh, we're going to kill this kid. This is going to be fun. Like, trying to get the headspace. And the second they did it, they, like, kind of what Irina was saying, they all lost it. And after they, like, cut, they're like, that was great, everybody. Awesome job. We can't use any of your faces, but we can use the shots with the kids, so we're good. But because none of them were in character when that happened.
So this was just an anecdote I kept hearing from a bunch of different interviewers, and the fact that this scene was so brutal that Stephen King even turned to Mike Flanagan upon seeing it for the first time and said, like, don't you think that's a bit much, kind of a thing? And they actually cut back on some of the film time there and took out some stabs.
It was still a bit much.
I think, maybe that was a wise decision.
Yeah,
I actually don't think it's I think it's just right, because it is genuinely trying to disturb you.
Yeah.
And in this scene, I have no sympathy for the True Knot. I'm like, yeah, F these guys.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready to see them burned. And it really kind of establishes that, like, this good versus evil between Danny and the True Knot, where I'm like, I can't wait to see Danny come in and just wreck shop on these guys. Like, that's what I want to see. But also helping him, Abra, obviously.
Right.
And honestly, he is helping her, I should say.
And
She's
Billy.
Billy, yes.
Billy was a
no,
very
I know
big
that,
part
but
of
we've already talked about Billy. Let's talk about...
Billy's like the Sokka of the group.
Yeah. Let's talk about Abra real quick. Kylie Curran, this young actress. Here's the thing I have with her. I think she's actually it's a good performance.
Yeah.
I don't know if it fits with the to quote David, the vibe of this movie or The Shining. Her performance makes me feel like I'm in a more
X-Men.
mainstream contemporary movie, whereas everything else surrounding her feels, I don't know,
I think
older.
there's something really strange about her environment where everything is very, very curated, where every other set doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, it feels very like TV commercial, like
exactly.
shiny, just...
And I get that. I'm assuming she lives in a very wealthy household because she's got a pretty smoking birthday going on, and like their house is enormous. They have large paintings everywhere. Got their own piano. Like mom and dad are just, I don't know. Her parents as well just feel very cardboard. Like they'll walk in and it's like, you do your homework. Good, and walk back out. Coming down to dinner.
It feels like a different movie.
It just feels strange.
And this, I don't even want to blame her, because I actually think when she gets torn away from her household and is on the road with Danny later on, I think she totally fits into the movie much better. It's just anytime she's at her home, I feel like I'm in a different experience.
I think I agree. It's kind of just, these are two different stories a little bit, and eventually they do blend. But with her, she's got this, suburban life, like you guys were saying.
There's a huge generation gap,
yeah,
too, though. So
a
maybe
huge generation gap, and she doesn't feel. I don't know. It doesn't feel like her character deserves her power yet.
Okay, that's a funny thing you should say that, because Irene and I did a discussion on this, and there's a few movies and situations where you run into this where the issue is based around showing the deserving of the power. Like, you can have that kind of power, but if you have no trial, no tribulation, no issues with how you work through that, then we are less inclined to care or believe it.
And I agree.
I fully agree with that.
I actually would have loved to see her go through something like maybe shift around the death of the parents and make that be some sort of traumatizing event that triggers
like a catalyst.
something.
I was actually thinking it would have been really interesting if they had decided, let's add a character, have it be a brother or sister, and they get taken by the True Knot.
Oh, make it a little more personal.
Yeah, exactly. That way she has a real stake in them, too.
I do think they do a good job of making it like, when she does reach out to Danny through the chalkboard, she has seen something truly traumatizing that does kind of attach her to that.
Right.
Like, I think they do a good job of connecting these two characters, but it could have been more personal. I agree.
But it is it's about the deserving of the power, less so her attachment to the story.
I think the reason it also feels that way is you're pretty much first introduced or reintroduced to Danny, who's, down on his luck. He's working on himself. You are invested in this character stepping up to the plate and, just like striking that ball. And then you are presented instead with Abra, who's now kind of, in my mind, it felt like they were trying to swap her into the lead character role. And I was like, no, but
this guy,
Danny.
Does it also seem a little on the nose that her name is Abra? Like abracadabra.
Well, yeah.
Well, they kind of like call that out in the beginning when she has a magician,
Still,
like,
though,
what's the
it's a
magic
Stephen
word?
King thing. Like, just leave it.
Yeah.
I still like her, though, and she, not in this first half, but in the second half, I feel like she has some real shining moments for me that I really enjoyed.
Some of my favorite moments involve her.
Yeah. But yeah, at the beginning, I was like a little off put by it. Okay, so at this point, the True Knot, particularly Rose the Hat, have kind of caught on to the fact that there's a serious shiner out there, Abra. So they are kind of on the hunt. The baseball boy was not quite enough for them, but this girl, she's all the way on the other coast, but yet they can sense her power. So Rose the Hat decides to pay her a little visit.
Astro-projectively.
Yeah.
Astral.
Honestly,
Thank you.
Another amazing visual in this movie. Just seeing her go across the stars through the sky and then into her room, and then go through her filing cabinet of various, what do they keep in there exactly? It's like
their
memories and
yeah,
information.
just memory. But in Danny's case, it's different. It's like literal locked chests,
which
of
is
things that shouldn't come out.
Everybody compartmentalizes their issues differently, and I don't think Abra is old enough to have the same kind of issues Danny has.
Well, I mean, we'll get into it later, but what's in his mind is not just his memories.
I know his are like actual manifestations of evil.
He has
that can
literally
kill people.
all the zombies from The Shining in there.
Yeah. He's got a little bit more to lose.
Yeah. But one of my favorite scenes, just the spotlight comes on Rose the Hat.
That's mine. That's my favorite.
Yeah, closes her hands in the shelf or in the drawer.
Yeah, the filing cabinet. And rips her hand up.
Yeah, we got another kind of little degloving scene almost, and the scene when she just zips back onto her place on top of the camper, and, and the force of it hitting her body, she flies off, was so cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
I remember when this scene popped up, I was like, I want more of this.
Yes.
Like, this is the kind of stuff I want to
Yes.
see out of this film.
Like, it doesn't feel like The Shining at
Yeah.
all.
That's
but I'm
Michael
glad it doesn't.
Flanagan
Yeah.
style.
Yes,
I could
exactly.
see his vision for that scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it actually makes you think of how much cooler it even could have been, because this was set up in the beginning with that talk with what's his name? Is Dan and the guy
Oh, Dick
Billy?
Halloran?
Dick? Yeah.
Halloran.
Oh, okay.
Where he was like, one day you will tell this person this. And they totally could have had a mentorship arc, a miniature mentorship arc in which he kind of teaches her about The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
And then like now she's able to kind of protect herself. And like that could have been like one of his tricks.
That would have been a severe rewrite, I think, which I would have been okay with, but that would have definitely deviated more than probably what Stephen King would have wanted. But I agree. I think that her issue was the fact that she was perfect from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that would have been a great sort of continuation story.
Well, it just would have made that scene even more satisfying.
Yeah.
I'm just
I agree.
I'm not a filmmaker or anything, so I don't know what actually would have been better, but from my mind.
Speaking of Dick Halloran, this is also when he's been kind of talking to Danny throughout this sporadically, like commenting on his decisions. And this is the point when he tells Danny, you got to step up, man, because I've been watching you all this time. It's your turn. Like, you have to watch over someone. So I really like that passing of the torch, kind of. I thought that was really well done as well.
It's kind of like a Yoda to Luke situation, and then kind of like a
Luke to Rey.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Or Luke to Rey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or Luke to Rey.
Yeah. All right, let's move on with the story there.
Though Dan is hesitant to stop True Knot, he eventually decides to help Abra. Dan seeks the assistance of Billy and Abra's father, Dave. They kill the clan of weirdos aside from Rose, but Billy and Dave die, and Abra is captured. Fortunately for Abra, Dan knows some hoodoo magic and he mind snipes Crow Daddy, Abra's captor. Dan then brings Abra to the Overlook to lure Rose there, knowing its dangers. He starts the hotel's boilers in order to destroy the place and explores the building, waking it up, so to speak. Rose arrives and beats the crap out of Dan until he releases his mind's Pandora's box, which holds the ghosts of Christmas past. The ghosts kill Rose but possess Dan. He goes down to the boiler room but regains control before he deactivates the boiler. In his final moments, he sees himself as a young boy being comforted by his mother, and Abra survives, continuing to shine brightly.
All right.
Hey.
Okay, so this is where the movie really starts to cook, I feel like. When
You mean boil?
Yeah, boil. Or steam.
Or grill, as we were seeing on screen.
But yeah, this is when the True Knot and Danny and Abra fully start to come to blows, and there is actual confrontation. How do we, first of all, we haven't really talked about this, but how do we feel about the relationship between Danny and Abra? Do we think they get along pretty well? Like, do they have a good rapport? Is it a good chemistry?
I actually like it. I think that they address the elephant in the room in the very first in-person meetup, which you just know that you're thinking, but you're like, the movie's not going to address this, and they do, which is the fact that you're just like this adult hanging out with this 13-year-old kid, and it moves past it, and I think they did it very eloquently.
Yeah, sure.
Smoothly.
That's a good
So
word.
they did a good job.
Yeah. I really like their relationship. It's you're right. They ease you into it. It's not awkward. You get they almost seem like they have this unique situation where they can speak to one another and understand one another, even despite the generation gap. But yeah, this kind of leads into them finally kind of getting together and heading out to go take down the True Knot. And it's kind of a funny scene where Danny goes back up to Billy and explains everything to him. And what is it that Billy says? He's like, either you're completely insane or this is way worse than I thought it would be. I don't know exactly what he says. I'm butchering the words. But I love that Danny's so willing to go on this journey, or Billy's so willing to go on this journey with Danny to help him out. And like you guys knew, I knew, even the first time I saw this movie, that Billy was a goner.
Well, the issue with that is that that's not what it was in the book. And
so is this a Dick Halloran situation where Dick Halloran survives The Shining in the book?
Yeah, it is actually.
Okay.
If we're making that kind of comparison, yeah. Where it's like the character that is helpful and the one that you want to root for to help the main protagonist. It feels like directors are like, you know what? We got to add more stakes here.
Yeah.
We got to kill the person who's most connected to our protagonist. And that just happens to be Billy in this movie.
Yeah, but the shootout is so cool, though. I really love seeing all of these True Knot members bite the dust. We haven't really talked about the effect that when they're dying, it's this that you start to see like the skeleton inside them flicker, and then the eyeballs, their eyes glow.
Yeah,
Mike Flanagan loves his glowing eyes in movies, by the way, and you know what? I love it too.
In this one, it really
cool.
works, I think.
But yeah, it's this, especially when the old man is dying, and Rose the Hat is like comforting him and saying like, "You're a conqueror of worlds. You've seen civilizations rise and fall."
That was a good speech.
That was like so cool. It just as he's dying, but then you wonder like, this guy's probably heading to a nothing void where, there's no afterlife. It's just like gone.
It's weird because I was trying to get a sense of the time frame for them, and I think she says to Andy at one point that it seemed like 100 years to one, right? So if that's the case, I was trying to see like, how old do you think the guy who dies? I can't even remember his name right now, but
a lot.
I'll just say how thousands of years. Crazy.
But yeah, this is it's a fun. Fun. It's not fun. It's cool seeing just them take all these guys out one by one. It's the scene we've kind of been waiting for when they finally just get what they deserve. And unfortunately, Snakebite girl, whatever her name is,
Andy
Snakebite, uses her powers of persuasion to convince Billy to off himself. And I think we knew it was coming, but
stupid.
It
Not
stings.
In that way.
It stings even more that it was
Not
her
in
that did
way.
it.
Yeah,
stings,
you know?
like a snake bite. Yeah, no, it was unsatisfying for me. And I know I'm gonna deviate from the positivity I've been throwing at this movie, but this is actually one of my least favorite parts.
I wish it was, even though she was in a completely different location, I wish it was Rose the Hat that killed
Yeah,
Billy.
honestly,
Okay.
I think
That would've been better.
Rose needed a little more, like, even though you know she's evil, she needed a little more of that, like, sticking her fingers in your wound kind of a situation.
Because she does not often have the upper hand against any of them.
She doesn't.
Like, the grocery store scene, she's shoved backwards by Abra. Obviously, the scene when she invades Abra's bedroom in her mind, she's
thwarted
there easily. I could have used one win for Rose the Hat, and I feel like this would have established her more as like, oh yeah, we gotta get her out of here. But yeah, it kind of diminishes the ending when there is the final face-off with Rose the Hat. I do wish I hated her slightly a bit more than I do, because I kind of like her.
No, I agree. She's a good villain. The issue is, it feels like they diminish the power behind the knot. And I hear that the director's cut does more to emphasize the power behind the knot. So if you want to see a better version that shows that better, I think the director's cut will help. But in that scene where they are shooting off, Billy and Dan are shooting off all the members of the knot, it just felt very simple. Like, they're just these vampires that have lived for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years.
Well, the thing is, they didn't establish many of those characters. Like,
they didn't.
There were none of them were like big names in the True Knot. Like, the big ones were Crow Daddy and Rose the Hat and kind of the Snakebite girl.
But if they killed any of them with a gun, it's not very satisfying. It's just like, oh, we shot him in the woods, got him. It's like hunting a deer.
Well, how else would you do it, though? You know,
something.
This movie would be 5 hours long.
It's like killing a vampire with like a stab with just like a normal blade. You're just like, well,
they aren't vampires.
They basically are vampires.
They just live long, man. Come on.
And they have powers. Danny has mind control. I'm sorry. It's just like that scene was very unsatisfying for me in multiple ways, and I think it's one of the worst parts in this movie.
I agree. I don't think there was any need for him to really die, because you already had your thought about where it was going. They didn't need to increase the stakes because of how it ends, and clearly we already knew who the villain was, and there is enough motivation already to take care of them.
It's also the fact that these people have been around for so long. You're like, oh, they know how to survive, and then they just die.
Mm-hmm.
All of them at once in one place. Like, wow, they didn't know how to survive very well with these guys, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they knew how to live longer. They didn't know necessarily how to kill better, or
I mean, if you live that long, and like the other guy apparently was like seeing empires rise and fall. All right, I'm digressing.
Yeah.
I think it was just kind of weak. That's it. I'll say that.
So while all this is happening, Abra gets abducted by Crow Daddy, someone we have not talked about.
Not enough.
Played by Zan McLaren. I like this guy as like
I do too.
Side, or the Rose the Hat's handyman who kind of goes out and gets everything done. There's maybe a little romantic something or other on the side there too. This guy, he's like, there's 4 members of the True Knot that I think really like define that group. There's a whole bunch of other ones who are just kind of like there and you don't ever learn anything about him. And he's like maybe my second favorite after Rose. Just when I see him, I'm like, what's Crow Daddy up to?
I like him. I hate his name, but I like the actor.
Crow Daddy.
No, it works.
It's so stupid.
I think I think it's supposed to sound gross. Like it's just like Crow Daddy. Like no, it fits.
It sounds like a weird porn name for some Native American, and it makes me uncomfortable.
That's what he is, man. It fits.
That's fair.
But then once he. By the way, in the theatrical version, you do not really see the killing of Abra's parents, but in the director's cut, you do. To my understanding, I have not seen the director's cut yet. But that's kind of just like tossed aside, like not really talked about a lot. Abra doesn't seem super broken up about it. But
they blow
there's
right
like
past
one
that.
moment where Danny says like, "Sorry about your dad," and she's like, "Yeah, sorry about your friend." And then they move on.
All right. I get it, though. It's a long movie. You got to, like, blow past some of this stuff.
Well,
I thought that was a little weird, too.
I think there's, like, this... It's trying to get across that their abilities lead them to circumstances that are beyond the norm. Mm-hmm. So they have to, kind of, like, just buck up, I guess. Yeah. But it's just... The way it was handled and the progression of it felt more comical than serious, I guess.
Yeah. It just seemed like if there was anything about this movie that seemed underbaked, it was all of that. Where it's just like, okay, we just got to get this character from point A to point B. Just quickly throw that in there. Parents die. All right, we're good. Now they're together. It just seemed like that was the quick fix to get these 2 characters to meet. But then it's juxtaposed against one of my favorite scenes, though, which is when Danny kind of takes over Abra in the car.
That was great.
Yeah, you have to give Kaylee Curran credit for this performance. It is all her. But I heard Danny through that performance where it's like, oh, she's a completely different person.
Right.
I think this is her best moment, honestly, performance-wise. David's kind of like, I guess so.
It was a good performance.
But seeing Danny kind of take over and then just comment on like the street sign and saying, "Oh, you're heading over there. Interesting." Like, I love Crow Daddy kind of like, oh, someone else different is here.
And then Crow Daddy seeing him kind of bristle a little bit as he realizes,
as he slowly becomes more unnerved. It was
so satisfying.
There's nothing more satisfying than seeing villainous characters become unnerved by something that a protagonist is doing.
Yeah.
Especially when they show it subtly. Yeah. Like, it's not just like...
And then you're finally getting those Danny moments that you've been waiting for, where you're like, yes, Danny, come on.
Yes.
Danny is
use your shine.
Okay, hold on. The thing is, in the very beginning, when he's talking to Dick Halloran, I think one of the lines is, nobody shines like you. Yep. And they emphasize it, And I think that it was a very poor choice to do, especially since you're literally showing somebody who is stronger. And Abra is stronger. I think that there's no contest.
I think an argument can be made for her not being as strong as him.
I don't want her to be because I love Danny.
And how did Rose and the Knot people like miss him completely if he's so...
Well, he was repressing his shine.
Yeah.
Well, but they would have even... I feel like they would even know about the Overlook Hotel.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's that's again one of those things where none of us have read the book. Maybe that's explained there, but it is just this sort of open-ended thing where, like, how was it not on their radar? How do they not know about this place? Why did they not feel Danny? Why?
I wonder if they can't extract a shine from a location. Because I know that Dick Halloran, when in the first movie, talked to Danny about like places having a shine sometimes too, but maybe it's different. Maybe it's not like an organic shine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is where the rules start bending in this.
Yeah. But yeah, it is weird that they don't sense it in locations. I don't know. But still, I like seeing Crow Daddy bite the dust, hits a tree, the car hits a tree, and he goes flying out the windshield. There's all these kind of awkward cuts back to Rose the Hat just like screaming in her place as just not really doing anything, just feeling her people die. I was like, that was a kind of disconnect I felt with the movie where I feel like Rose the Hat should have been more involved directly with what was happening. Like they kind of sideline her throughout this, like she can't get to them.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish she was just a part of the group at the time when all this stuff was happening, just to really establish her as like that's the final boss. We got to go get her. And she's involved directly with Billy's death and all of this stuff.
Right. You know what would have made this like really cool? If it were a TV series.
Or 2 movies or 3 movies or 4 movies.
I mean, Noah, this is the rare occasion where I thought the exact same thing.
Hey, it's not that rare. There are a lot of things that would do well.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be correct, but I feel like you're the one to bring it up normally.
All right, pitch it real quick.
Dude. So just, I don't know. I can't really pitch it, but if you've watched the movie, you just kind of know that there's a lot that they can unfold here and a lot of different story arcs they could go into.
The Knot? Think about how you could literally break through each one of the people in the Knot. Go through Rose, who apparently came by in like from Ireland in the colonial times.
Yeah.
Like her coming over to America, then being abducted, seeing that guy from Eastern Europe and like showing that entire community of evil. Yeah. Like, there's a whole thing there.
But even you wouldn't even have to go that far back.
Even if you just want to follow Dr. Sleep, like it says that it's about, you could have his various, situations of him using his shining, so you know more about his abilities.
Yeah.
And, but also have him trying to repress them the whole time until finally, near the end of the series, he's realizing, okay, it's my time to shine. And he starts using it, and you're just super duper hyped because it's like, whoa, he's so overpowered now.
He is the one we need to show his overpowered side.
Y'all are talking about an anime now.
I was imagining One Punch Man in my head.
I still believe that anything from The Shining should not ever be on a small TV screen. I think it should always be a cinematic experience on a big screen.
Why? The Shining is a cinematic experience.
I like Dr. Sleep the way it is, even though it's not a perfect movie. I don't want.
I know. Show. I agree. I like this movie.
It's too late now.
A good amount, but I'm saying it would have made a great series.
I agree.
All right, so we're heading into the finale here. Abra and Danny have convened, and they are going on a little road trip to the Overlook Hotel, where they intend to burn the place to the ground, take down Rose the Hat. What do y'all think of this final set piece, or the final 30 minutes or so of this movie, where we kind of dive back into the world of the original Shining? There's even, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same opening shot from The Shining, only lit to look
Yeah.
like it's night.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I think they said those were the only shots that were taken from the film.
Yeah, there's
too.
two. There's to my knowledge, there's that shot, and then there's when Danny goes to the room or the bathroom with the slat missing, and he looks in just like his father Jack, and then it cuts to Shelley Duvall screaming.
Right.
I think those are the two ones.
Yeah.
I could be wrong though. But yeah, let's break it down.
I think this segment is where I felt the most mixed about the film. I liked certain elements of it as far as coming back to the hotel, since in the Shining universe, cinematically, it still exists. But if you've read the book, you know that it was destroyed by Jack Torrance in The Shining, in a very similar way to the way Danny does in this one. So it's paying homage to the first book, but also maintaining the story structure that Kubrick started. I feel like I missed out, and mostly because I'm watching the theatrical version. Maybe the director's cut will feel more well-rounded, because I do intend to watch that after this. It didn't feel like, I'm thinking of particularly the scene when Danny arrives in the ballroom and he is face to face with his father, basically, who is also the bartender.
Hey, that's a guy from E.T., right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also the guy from Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
But he's talking to him, and it's supposed to be a really, really impactful moment where he turns down the medicine, which is alcohol. And I just didn't feel the impact as much as I wanted to, because I think
it's not there.
There was too much time spent on Abra rather than Danny and his personal life, because that was sort of sidelined for the middle part of the film. It was established more at the beginning, but then you've spent so much distance that moment doesn't hit the way I think it was supposed to.
I think the movie kind of ever so slightly loses sight of Danny's character arc throughout this movie, where it's like it's really strong for the first 50%, and then Abra enters the scene, and it kind of becomes her story. And I get that it is a passing of the torch,
right?
Almost, but I really did. I was missing that emotional punch from Danny when, like, especially in the final moment where, like, the fire is consuming him and he sees it goes back to when he was young and he's facing his mom. That's also something that I feel like I've read is enhanced by the director's cut.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed a little diminished by the end, where I was, it wasn't bad, but it's not hitting the way you think it should be.
It's a scene where when I watched it, I could see how this could be a very, very big scene.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't hitting, but I saw what the director, it was a very like out of body sort of analysis, because in a different version of this movie, I could see that being a very good scene.
Yeah.
The way they shot it, everything was good, but you need the setup. And I think I can't remember. It might have been Screen Drafts, honestly, where I heard this from. They said, if you have an issue with the third act of a movie, that means there is a first act problem. And I think that ties in here because they didn't set up his character to have this ending arc. And I think if they set it up properly, this would have been amazing. And I really liked what they had in mind.
Well, I think they set it up, but then they lost the thread, and then they kind of just picked it up at the end.
Yeah, I weirdly think it's a second act problem.
Yeah.
Like the third act not being great is a second act problem. Not like holding on to the ball and carrying it all the way to the finish line. It's like it passes the ball to Abra.
Yeah.
Halfway through.
Yeah, you are convinced by that point that you're focused on Abra at this moment, and Danny is playing support.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good notes about this, though. I actually really like the needle drop of the original Shining theme. There's certain like callbacks to The Shining that I really like. I do actually like the nighttime shot of that lake.
Oh, that was so good.
It's cool, and seeing the classic, or hearing the classic theme, and I really, really like Danny walking through the abandoned Overlook Hotel, and it's just slowly waking up. And you can feel like the evil kind of seeping back into the hotel, like it's just or the whatever, the spirits.
It's waking
or whatever.
up.
Like
it was
it's
taking a
coming
nap.
back.
It felt his presence.
Like I've never felt more that the Overlook is its own living entity than I did in that scene, where it's like, oh yeah, it does like kind of just have its own
responding.
It has its own pulse.
Yeah. I think that's something that Mike Flanagan seemed to have carried over from Haunting of Hill House, because in that story, the house was also devouring and had this living quality to it. So it felt a little more, in my mind, Haunting of Hill House than The Shining Hotel.
I would agree.
And I think it's this sort of House of Horrors aspect that he kind of put into it. As well as Kubrick, the film style of Kubrick's The Shining, you don't know where everybody is in the hotel at all times, and that's why it's freaky. In this one, I didn't feel as lost.
Yeah, there was, for one, I'll give him a little bit of...
Yeah.
Like, it was a 30-minute section of this movie versus the entire duration. But yeah, you're right. There's less of that disorienting feeling of like, I don't know where the hell I am.
Yeah. Well, also if you are supposed to have a character like Rose come in, I would have liked a little more like, where is she in the hotel kind of a thing.
No, that's kind of like
taken
care of reasonably quickly.
Yeah.
So on that point, I think for this, it makes sense that you kind of have a finger on the pulse for where people are in the house. And that's because you're watching it from Dan's perspective this time, not as a child that is scared, or not as a wife hiding from her abusive husband.
Right.
You're seeing it from his perspective as an adult, him being there, he knows this place. He's been here before, so you, by connection, kind of are tapped into his knowledge of that.
That's true. Like you're along for the ride with him.
Yeah.
Like
going off of what you're saying, there was an aspect of the film style in this sequence that I really did like, and I don't know if it was intentional, but the camera is set high behind Danny as he's walking through. And I'm sure all of you know that feeling of revisiting a place the last time you were there, you were a kid, and you walk through the hallways and think, man, I thought this was a lot bigger than it was.
I did get that sense, yes.
It's a direct flip of under the very low shot when he's on his trike. And they scale it so that it is, that perspective shift.
Definitely an intentional choice there.
I almost want to just completely forget about Abra.
You just did for a moment.
Yeah. Sorry. I honestly think that this movie might have been better with Dan as the focus the entire time.
Well, it's weird because Danny is the one who ends it. He's the one who finishes. Abra almost does nothing.
Well,
I disagree.
No. I mean, in the ending sequence, she does almost nothing.
No, the point being is, I think her character should only work as his motivation,
and that was her final.
That's what they do, but they decided to give her a crap ton of power and make her.
Well, that's the only way she could reach out to Danny.
But they made her. Okay, no, because everyone had their shines. He could have passed her in a hallway somewhere, and they could have connected.
Or they could have just gone with the original version. This is where it deviates the most from the original work. The ending is completely different than the Dr. Sleep book, and what they did was they combined it with the original ending to The Shining. What happens in the ending of this movie is almost exactly what happens to Jack Torrance in The Shining, but they put that onto Danny, And because
okay.
the end of Kubrick's version, they didn't do the original book version. I think what they said was that that the director of this, I'm blanking on his name right now,
Mike Flanagan.
Flanagan really liked the ending of The Shining and wanted to sort of incorporate that, and so he combined the two endings.
Yeah,
and if you went the original version, you probably could have toned back Abra more because of that. But in this version, you almost needed her in that way.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, you can have her character be needed for his motivations without trying to sideline Dan.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think that's
agree.
what my issue was.
But I think that at the end they do start to refocus on Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do.
Too little, too late.
Once they get to the Overlook, it is back to being Dan's story. And
Yeah,
and
that's actually what I like about it.
Yeah, and this goes back to it being like a second act problem, as we said.
Yeah.
Like because it does shift focus when maybe it shouldn't have.
Yeah, but that's the reason. Like, I really like Act 3 because it's kind of a, all right, this is my show now. From Dan's perspective, I'm
Right.
taking you to my territory. This is where I grew up. Welcome to my horror story.
Aggressive snapping.
And I just wanted him to completely just destroy everyone there.
And he kind of does.
Yeah. and I think that would, well, even her before, with his just powers.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to keep. I can see you're wanting to move this recent.
No, it's fine.
I refuse. But this part is very important, and I think when it came to Danny's arc, and it took me a while to realize what my issue was. I had to watch a lot of different other critics give me their opinions for me to find mine. But the issue is that they give Danny Jack's arc from the original book from The Shining without giving Danny's character
the dark's ending.
Yeah, well, they give him that ending without giving the backstory and the connection to it. So it's like they want the ending of The Shining without the character having any sort of weight or stake in that same ending. That was a Jack Torrance ending, and it makes sense. It does not make sense for Danny, and I think that
I think it does. Here's the thing.
They're putting on the weight of his dad on him.
I think The Shining and Doctor Sleep are just two sides of the same coin. I'm probably not using that correctly, but The Shining is the dark version. This is what happens when addiction gets to you and it results in catastrophe. Whereas, again, this goes back to the hopeful message that Stephen King was trying to instill in the original book and Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep is the positive side of it. Like, despite addiction, you have conquered it. You've gotten through to the other side. He followed the same trajectory as Jack, but he is his own person, and he found his own strength, and he was able to defeat it. Like, that's, for me, I think it tracks. I think it works. I just think it's a second act problem. It just loses sight of Danny as the main character, but it does. I believe in his journey. I don't think it's trying to just completely draft off of Jack Torrance. I think it's trying to complement that story, but show the positive side that it is trying to be hopeful. It's like, yeah, you can be good despite your vices. That's what I got from it.
And you're right. This is kind of a cool arc for Dan in that at the end of it all, he's kind of accepted his past too. He's somewhat embraced it, which is a cool full circle for his character. So for the sake of this movie, I think that's really cool, even if it's not.
I like
the books.
I like where the film ends. I just don't like that the movie had to try to remind us that it was The Shining over and over and over again.
Yeah, I get that.
I don't like that Danny wields an axe. I don't like that he gets a limp in his step, and I don't like that he becomes evil and chases Abra around the Overlook with one whited out eye. That stuff to me seems like fan servicey crap. Like, that I don't need in this movie.
That was him trying to complete the arc of the first book.
Like, I actually really like the scene where he's looking through the bathroom, just like Jack did, but it's totally different. But then the movie decides to show you a clip from the original Shining with Shelley Duvall screaming as Jack like hits the door. I'm like, we know exactly what happened here. We don't need to see a clip from The Shining.
That wasn't
to
the
remind
original
us.
clip.
No, it was.
It wasn't.
It wasn't, actually.
What was it?
It was, they remade it. I actually have a thing here if you want me to read it.
Okay.
From Screen Rant. While it might have been easier for Flanagan to have simply recycled footage from Kubrick's film in these scenes, the fact that he didn't is a testament to his ambition and desire to do more than merely play on nostalgia for the Shining movie with Dr. Sleep. The only 3 scenes he used were done through helicopter.
I guess you're right. Maybe I just wasn't looking close enough, but it looked like freaking Shelley Duvall.
They did a good job.
They did a good job. Why do they need that scene, though?
I thought that about most of the recreations they did in this movie.
Yeah. But yeah, the film ends in the boiler room. Danny kind of sees himself as young again and faces his mom directly. They're looking into each other's eyes as the place burns to smithereens. And he kind of becomes the watchful spirit and advisor to Abra after that.
So he's Dick 2.0.
Yes. I do quickly want to talk about Rose the Hat, though, this final confrontation between the two of them. Honestly, it left a little bit to be desired for me. Mm-hmm. I think this, like, she starts to kind of, like, come on to him, and it's like, oh, you're very attractive. And then it just ends in him slamming an axe into her, and then her taking the axe and slamming the axe into him. And then he unleashes all the Shining beasties on her, and they all look kind of like CGI and not very good. But then
there's something about seeing them all in a group that diminishes the effect of
they're not
how
scary.
they were individually.
They're not scary. They're not scary at all.
I think that's my question. That could have been. It's a problem that might have stemmed back from the book Dr. Sleep, but I haven't read it. Is the function of the hotel and the function of the ghosts within the hotel.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it kind of just opens that up for debate again, but in a way that I'm not really interested in.
Yeah.
Where they talk about the house, or not the house, the hotel is being like it shines itself and it needs to feed. Mm-hmm. And so it's using ghosts or images of other people in order to do that. But then they devour her first. Why did they not attack Abra, or did he send them?
Well, I thought he released them
onto her.
I thought they were inside his little mind.
No, he has them trapped. But that makes me
out,
why are.
Also, I imagine Rose the Hat has a lot of shine in her.
She does,
Yeah.
but
supposedly,
she
was supercharged before this.
Yes, she was, and that's what I think is the reasoning. I truly do believe that, but supposedly Danny is one of the strongest ones.
Yeah.
To me,
and they have more connection to him. So
it just seemed more like someone set off a bomb, but the movie made it look like it was more like he shot a gun in a direct
now
position. Yeah, on her.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think
I thought it was
they
more
could've-
like aiming the Hulk.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think they missed an opportunity with him giving her kind of like a house of, giving her a personal house of horrors and, bringing her into, whenever he decides
world.
to release them, it's almost like he had been doing an illusion the whole time, and he was just all right, now have at it. And then she can be, transported to, that hall where, the girls are gushing blood out the thing.
Yeah.
And you could have, all of the, one by one, the horrors of the Overlook Hotel come out and, terrorize her and maybe take a piece of her
I did like that scene where she's kind of exploring I could have used more of this, where she's exploring the Overlook, and she sees the blood come from the elevator, and she kind of smiles, it's oh, I like this place.
No, yeah.
It's she's excited to start whatever she's doing.
Well, hi there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing I wanted was for the house to completely eat her alive. And it does, but like in a more visceral way, I guess. I don't know, a more personal way.
Yeah, I just didn't like all the Shining imagery coming back in and like this is how this ends. Okay. But it's all right. I'm okay. Like, it doesn't ruin the film for me. But back around to the final portion of this movie, how do we feel about Danny being the Dick Halloran 2.0 to Abra? Are we cool with that?
I'm okay with it.
I like it.
Yeah.
They made it seem like it was going to be this big twist. We're like, we know what you're doing.
It's Obi-Wan Force Ghost.
It's very much Obi-Wan Force Ghost.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a nice little end, like seeing
there.
that he's not gone forever, but you're still kind of, it's a bit of a melancholy feeling knowing that he's kind of passed on. What did y'all think about the moment between him and his mom as the place is burning down?
I didn't really feel anything. I was just like, that's some cool imagery.
Nice.
It's another thing I through a video that I watched that I was supposed to be better in the director's cut, more set up, about the mom never being able to look him in the eye or something because she's reminded of Jack Torrance, and in this final moment they are able to look eye to eye as just everything burns down.
That's like
that
crucial.
Makes more sense.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, the thing is, the movie's already long. You could imagine the studio WB was like, okay, we got to cut it down.
Take out the death.
Yeah. But yeah, I could see that really hitting home in an effective way under honestly, we're just going to have to watch the director's cut. That's what we have to say. Like, we got to just get it done.
I'm going to watch the director's cut, and I'm going to read the book, too. Because, I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. All right. That concludes the story portion of this podcast. Let's take a quick break, and on the other end, we will be getting into our reviews with numbered scores, what critics thought, some box office, and we'll close it out with a little franchise talk, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's review Dr. Sueño. Dr. Sleep. David, you've got our reviews in a bowl there. Why don't you pull them at random?
I think I will. First up, I can already tell by the shape of this fold.
Oh, it's me.
It is Noah. So we have Noah with an 8.0.
All right.
Yeah. Despite a number of its shortcomings or areas that I can flaw it in, I really had a good time with this movie. I thought it's an excellent take on the source material. I think it's distanced enough from The Shining for me to think of it separate from that, but connected enough to it for the stuff that was important from The Shining to cross over. At least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I thought the acting was really good. Personally, would have omitted Abra. I know other
She's
people...
like such a big point in the plot.
Well, no. Sorry, Abra as she is, I think I would have preferred...
You would have recontextualized
yes.
Abra.
Yeah, I would have made her solely a plot device for Dan and not kind of like a side main character. But other than that, I like it. It's got a lot of emotional depth. The music's pretty nice. It's just a fun movie.
You enjoyed yourself?
Yeah.
All right. Next up. Irina, also with an 8.
Yeah, up top, brother. Yeah. So I did really enjoy this film, and it's beautifully shot. There's so many good scenes. Just visually, it's enjoyable to watch. There are so many things that are easy to nitpick. That's the thing. It's easy to nitpick this movie because it follows such a well-known film as well as a well-known writer's work. there's endless things to have problems over. And I still do have issues with kind of putting Danny on the back burner only to bring him back in the end and give him a full redemption arc. It kind of fell flat a little bit. I didn't like bringing out all the ghosts as one big mass to kill the enemy. I think that should have been done by their own hands in a as weird as that sounds. It sort of just diminishes the effect of the hotel itself that I enjoyed in The Shining. I think a lot of the points I've already made throughout the course of this episode, so I won't dig too deep, but I very much enjoy it, and I'm always impressed to, like, as I'm getting sucked into the film, step back and think, like, he decided to make a sequel to The Shining, which I don't think anybody wanted to touch for years. So, and he still managed to make something that is very much passable.
Yeah. All right.
Next up, Reese with an 8.0.
Hey, there you go.
For one, I want to throw some shade real quick.
Oh,
Really?
Okay, all right.
Before you throw shade, fist bump me. With
Fist
the
bump you,
8.0.
but get ready for the middle finger.
Oh,
Y'all gave It Chapter 2 a higher score than Dr. Sleep, David and Noah. You absolute freaking fools.
I still think I think
I
It
stand by
Chapter 2
this.
is better than
It's
this.
okay. No, it's fine. Opinions are opinions. I just think that's like, that's...
You gave It Chapter 2
look,
5.5.
Noah, we're gonna have to take a step back here. It's
I'm
Reese's
just saying
review,
that
and
is...
a lot of people agree with him. Apparently,
Yeah, I find that utterly insane, because Dr. Sleep is so much better than It Chapter 2.
So much better?
So much better. Like, yes, it has flaws. I think, yes, you can nitpick certain aspects of this movie. It has one critical flaw for me, and that is that it is... the moments when it decides that it has to try and emulate The Shining, which it does not have to do. I think you can still have the Overlook Hotel in this without having to, cut to all these, like, iconic recreations of the original. Like, it doesn't need that. Like, you can go to the Overlook Hotel and just have it be this, like, creepy, contemplative sequence of events where, they're just kind of traveling back in time, but you don't have to recreate all these old scenes. I don't like the scene where, and we didn't really talk about it in the plot for some reason, but when Danny actually confronts Jack, who's now taken on the role of just the bartender at this area, I think that scene completely falls flat. I don't like it at all. I know there's people out there that like it. There's defenders out there for sure.
It's good in concept.
But no, this is Dr. Sleep. It doesn't have to be The Shining. But for the vast majority of this movie, 80% of it, it is its own entity. And that entity is firing on all cylinders. I love all the stuff with the True Knot. I love Ewan McGregor as Danny. I think he is perfect. It's an excellent performance. I like Abra. I like Billy. I like... did I say Rose the Hat already? Yeah, I think I said Rose the Hat already. I love all those people. It's just such a... for me, it is a captivating and engrossing horror film that is on an equally epic scale as The Shining. It just doesn't... It's just not a perfect work. But it is highly ambitious, and I think it succeeds in a lot of areas. So... there you go. I just don't like the Shining elements of it. That's all.
Okay. All right.
So 8 out of 10.
So we have 3 8s. Next we have AJ, also with an 8.
Look at that.
Hey.
What?
So, interestingly enough, I can't talk. I agree with Reese on the main detractors being kind of the fan service thrown in, but I actually enjoyed the bartender scene. With him sitting across the counter and kind of confronting the paternal sin kind of passed down of the alcoholism, the inner demons. And the problem, in my opinion, is the movie vacillated too much between, is it its own thing or is it a, sequel to The Shining?
Right.
And you have those thematic parallels, which are good, in my opinion, like from a just kind of a thematic standpoint. But the whole middle part is just completely external. Outside, you have the knot gang or whatever they're called. I forget.
True Knot.
Not
The
The
Knot
True
gang.
Knot that are just after the mist. And then you have too many new questions that are just brought up and unanswered. And where The Shining, you have the ambiguity and the mystery of, The Shining that doesn't need to be explained because it's immersing you in the horror of it. And you have the characters. Here it's like, okay, so you're introducing this supernatural stuff just to like kind of make stuff up where you've got this teleportation, the telepathy, the mist, all this stuff. Everybody has shines now. It just was too much new stuff that didn't go into specifics. And if they were going to do that, they needed to go into specifics and then it could be its own thing. But they were too vague on that. And then they go and throw back, okay, we're going back to the Overlook Hotel because we have to. It's obligatory. So that's where, they either need to completely do their own thing while exploring thematic parallels of, father-son kind of thing, or it needs to be a true sequel to The Shining. Here they had a split in bowling and completely went down the middle, didn't knock either pin over.
Yeah.
So positive notes, stellar acting, Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson. Rose the Hat was a very intriguing villain, but it just didn't fit with what thematically was the villain in the first movie. I still don't know what these vampire-esque villains are. They're just people who eat the shine of other people, and I don't know. I wanted to know more detail.
Yeah.
So, but visually, it's got a lot of great polish, acting. It's just I disagree with some of the structural and storytelling aspects of it, especially for the length that it is.
All right. It seems very apt that I would go last. And
Combo breaker.
Hey, David,
combo
could you
breaker.
remind yourself that you gave It Chapter 2 a 9 out of 10
Yes,
before you read your
wait,
score.
before
And
I-
also remind yourself
Thank you. No, I
that
was
you
gonna-
gave Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a 7.
Yeah. And which is very appropriate because I gave this a 7. And I'm going to bump it up to a 7.5. And I'm going to try not to beleaguer this because I share a lot of points that are very similar between Reese and AJ here. But I just think it made more of an impact on me. And the reason it was probably lower than everybody else is because when I first watched this, I thought I was going to give this like a 4. I thought this was not only bad, but pretty bad the first time I watched it, the very intro. And it grew on me. And I think that's because Flanagan's vision, he's a good director. He knows what he's doing. The cinematography in this is just mesmerizing. He makes a lot of smart decisions. And my biggest issue almost comes with the cutting of the film. It felt so disjointed in certain moments to me. And that combined with the sort of second half, the second act issue with this, where it didn't connect. There are so many good things, and I like them individually, but they didn't quite piece together to make a very impactful movie. And I can't quite still put my finger on it. Maybe the director's cut will help. Maybe reading the book will help. But it just felt like they were hitting all these scenes individually when they were making it, and they didn't connect them perfectly. And a 7.5 is better than I expected to give it. I know I am the lowest, which is a very rare occasion, but I think that it's apt for this movie.
Makes sense. It's a great movie.
Yeah. I think what you're picking up on is kind of like that. This is something I was going to mention at one point, but it never came up naturally, is just the complete opposite nature of this movie versus The Shining, especially from a director standpoint and the way the set was run, where Kubrick is very much like he's got his fingers in everything, and everything has to be run by him in a way where it's done a very particular style. Mike Flanagan on this set apparently was just very, very open to suggestions. He even worked with Stephen King on the script or like getting approval from him, where Kubrick had none of that. And even with individual actors, they were allowed personal freedom as far as trying to interpret their character, which Kubrick didn't really do.
No, you did it his way or the highway.
It's just really interesting
Except for
to
Jack.
see. Yeah, they were chummy.
Well, that's because Jack actually had the same vision.
I don't know about that. He was just getting the job done. But and I think Kubrick liked that. So it's just interesting to see these two products of completely different directorial styles and managing of a whole production. And I think that's why it feels kind of disjointed, is because there are a bunch of different influencing factors and not just one central voice.
Yeah.
Well, also, aesthetically, the first one, you're constricted in this maze-like, one building in the grounds, and then the other one is literally like teleporting across the country and all outside shots and stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's it.
I promise this is not reactionary, but as I'm thinking about this, okay, it's slightly reactionary, but I'm also thinking about it. I do want to lift my score just a 0.5.
Wait, not reactionary, but I actually want to drop my score.
No, I want to lift it a 0.5 just to 8.5, because I was waffling between these two anyway. When I was scoring, it was not a between 7.5 and 8. It was between 8 and 8.5. And I just want to do that. I think this movie is a little better than I'm giving it credit for. I think the Shining stuff still does drag it down. But I still think this movie's a magic trick. It shouldn't exist. It pulls most of everything off that I didn't think any one of these types of movies should have been able to do. It's crazy that it exists in the state that it does, and I think that deserves a little extra credit. It's not a Blade Runner 2049 miracle, but it is like the second best thing. So 8.5.
Also, I think, and this is hard for anyone really not to fall victim to, but especially when talking about Stanley Kubrick, he just has that presence. Like
it's operating under. Yeah.
I mean, he is going to influence your critique of the movie no matter what. If you've heard his name, it's inevitable. So you're like going to watch The Shining or anything Kubrick from a critical, production aspect and everything, and have that kind of confirmation bias added into it. Yeah. Whereas this, it's kind of a completely open experiment. So you imbibe the more of the feel of the movie on a vaguer level. At least I did.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I do want to say, and I know you're going to hate me for this, Reese, but I definitely think that It Chapter 2 is still better.
It's not.
I know,
but we can
and
move on.
I know. All right, you know what? We'll talk
You
after.
can't say it's not better. It's subjective.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, it's just like...
I know. We need to move on.
Yeah.
When David says things like that, I have like this gag reflex that just...
Well, I was thinking about it, and I would rather watch that one than this, and that comes from me being already called out by another popular podcast that also disagree with my perspective.
Yeah. You should name them.
Right.
The Contrarians podcast. Check them out. They're great.
Yeah. Called them out on
Twitter.
Contrarian
to the Contrarian?
They called me out and basically said that it was more appalling that I gave It Chapter 2 a 9.5 than my Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a 7.
Oh, wait, was it really a 9.5?
It was a 9. You gave it a 9.
I thought I gave it a 9 and raised.
Yeah, I was like, 9.5 sounds
I bumped
wrong.
from 8.5 to a 9. That's what it was.
Which
there
is
you go. Okay.
Insanity.
Yeah.
But sure.
No one gave it higher.
All right, AJ.
And I would take it down a 0.5, but...
That still puts us in the same level.
AJ, after all this deliberation, why don't you crunch those numbers for us, which I already know what it is.
Yeah,
Pretty
so we got a crazy 8 here, which ties it with...
It got an 8.
Oh, so actually,
guys,
8 stands alone.
No.
So
I gave it a 7.5, guys.
And
I
Reese
gave it
an
8.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
so
forgot you
y'all
raised yours. Sorry.
his reactionary raise.
I played the defense trap card.
Pot of greed.
Okay, so 8.0 even for Dr. Sleep. We have several at 8.2. Dread, Interview with a Vampire, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and The Road to El Dorado, and Treasure Planet. So those make it above Dr. Sleep, and below Dr. Sleep we have Ocean's
Immortals.
13 and Immortals at a 7.8.
Isn't It Chapter 2 pretty close behind it too?
It Chapter 2, 7.7. So yeah, there's a few of those.
It's funny how close that one could have been.
Yeah.
There are a lot in the 7 category,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Ugh. All right. So an 8 for Dr. Sleep. I like that. I like it. It deserves it.
I
I mean,
think
we
Seems
were all
a bit
on the
high,
same,
but I'm
same
cool with
page.
it.
Yeah. I think it is a solid baseline. Like, this is like an 8 out of 10 movie that you tell people about. It's like, yeah, not a 7.5.
And it seems like all our criticisms were pretty much the same, too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We were like,
it
yeah,
just
it's
weighed
been said
heavier.
already, but yeah.
I feel like the only thing for me was the disjoint that I think you guys didn't feel the same way.
Yeah. All right, moving on to critics. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 78% with an 89% from audiences. Very high audience score. On Metacritic, it has a 59, which is just barely in the yellow zone there, with an audience score of 7.1. And on IMDb, it has a 7.3, which is pretty good.
I almost always follow IMDb. I always keep up with my score with them.
Good for you,
I'm
David.
very in line.
You are. You're a man of the people.
Never low, never high. Just right down the middle.
Yeah. All right, box office. This movie released on November 8th in 2019. It opened against Midway, Playing with Fire, and Last Christmas.
I don't know any of those other movies.
Yeah. There's a few different reported
Midway
budget.
was fairly big.
Yeah, it was that was a World War II movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The movie has a couple of reported budgets, but I think the most reliable one is the $45 million budget. Based off of that, what do y'all think this movie did worldwide? I'm going to start with you, AJ.
I'm going to shoot high just because the name, I feel like this was advertised prominently and then coming off of The Shining.
Yeah.
I'll say 200.
Oh, that's right where I was going to guess.
All right, Noah, let's go to you then.
Okay, it's going to be pretty close to AJ's here. I think I'll vote a little south of 200, and we'll go with 190.
All right. 200 for AJ, 190 for Noah. Arena.
220.
All right, 220 for Arena.
I could easily just take a box in everybody route, but I'm just gonna go with my instinct. No, I'm 300.
300.
I'm going big.
Cool.
Noah, even though you were not close at all,
I was the lowest.
You were the closest.
Oh, was it that bad?
Yes, it's that bad.
Oh,
This movie made $72 million
No!
worldwide.
No way.
Ow.
no
Wow.
way.
It is a straight up box office bomb.
I feel like everybody saw this movie that I know.
I know those are the numbers. It had
That is so weird.
I think it had a lot of excitement upon release, but then for one reason or another, just people didn't show up.
Word of mouth didn't carry it through.
COVID.
Yeah, it's hard to even
Honestly,
explain because
no, you
it
can't
had
blame
decent
COVID for
it had
this one.
decent good reviews going in. The trailers
Yeah.
looked good. Just for some reason, people didn't show up. Again, it's kind of a Blade Runner 2049 situation again, because Blade Runner 2049 did better than this movie. Like, it wasn't an outright bomb, but still, it didn't do as well as people were expecting it to. And I guess that's just like, hey, nostalgia doesn't always play. You know?
Is it out of cycle for horror too?
No, I think this actually came out around. Yeah, it came out around. No, you're right. It was kind of November, so it was after Halloween. It's getting closer to the Christmas season, but still, I feel like it's close enough. But maybe if they had pushed back the release, like or pulled it like a month earlier, it could have done a lot better. But this was also the same year that It Chapter 2 came out, and that was a September release,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Monumental success.
I could imagine people are still hyped. They're at this point still hyped over it, and then Dr. Sleep is like, oh man, I don't know. The Shining was like ages ago.
Hey man, the numbers speak here.
yeah, it's
Obi-Wan Kenobi, like
Yeah.
that alone. I don't know. This one
No.
does not make sense to me.
It does perplex me. I'm agreeing with you because I was pretty sure I saw publicity for this all over
I
the place.
remember seeing the ads for this everywhere.
That being said, I did not see it in theaters for some reason.
I didn't either.
And just for further confirmation, I'm looking up on Box Office Mojo once more. Yes, 72 million worldwide.
So weird.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah, only 31 million in the States and 40 million elsewhere.
So they had to make up the budget overseas? They didn't even do it here.
No, they didn't. This movie did not profit. No.
Wait, you said, what was the budget? 45?
45 million.
Yeah, so they made their money back.
The budget, but no, that's not. I mean, if you include marketing and all of that stuff, that's not included in the budget.
I think they barely made back.
No, they didn't make any money.
They made
I'm sorry.
almost
No,
double,
they did not
right?
make any money. They lost money on this. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
They almost made double. I assumed that was enough.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a dud.
I mean, to an outsider, budget seems like an all-inclusive number when it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. The production budget is strictly for the production of the movie, and then there's other costs to just market it, which sometimes cost more than the movie itself. And another thing that's not factored in is how much theaters take of that the money made back at the box office. It's usually a pretty big fee. So while it'll say 72 million, a lot of that is going to the theaters and not coming back to the studio. So there you go. That's why
That sucks.
yeah, we will not be seeing a sequel to this in a very long time. But there were some, ideas tossed about. There was a potential Abra follow-up to this. Mike Flanagan was particularly interested in in continuing her story. There was also another project that was in the works since 2014 that was simply going to be called the Overlook Hotel. Not a lot of details on what that was going to be, but that was in production before even, or that was talked about before even Dr. Sleep was put into production. But other than that, the one other thing, there was going to be a movie called Hollerin, based off of Dick Hallorann. It was going to be a prequel. All of these ideas, though, I'm like, you know what? Leave it alone. I don't think we need that. That we can leave The Shining and Dr. Sleep alone as they are, as this kind of just 2-part series. I really like what these movies are together. One being like the warm and the other one being the cold side of The Shining. Like it's I don't think the series needs anymore. It doesn't need to be more of a franchise than it already is. So I'm kind of glad it was a bomb, as bad as that sounds. Like, I think that opens it up for a cult following, which I think is weirdly more appealing than something that's just a massive box office hit. But there you go. All right. Thus ends our discussions on Stephen King films. This was our Stephen King miniseries. Thank you, Irina. A little golf clap. We had a lot of fun with that. David's doing the snaps. This leads us into our next miniseries. I got to pick it this time, and I am coining it the Monkey Business miniseries. David's glaring at me. He doesn't want to watch monkey movies, but we're going to watch some monkey movies. We got a lot of them. So we are kicking this one off with Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, starring Marky Mark. This is our first Mark Wahlberg, guys.
Oh, boy.
Y'all excited?
Wow, only took this long.
It only took 70-something episodes, however long it's been. Starting with Planet of the Apes, you can only imagine where it goes from there, but we will keep that a secret.
More apes, probably.
More apes, more monkeys. I can't wait. I'm excited. I was so excited to drop this on David after he was clearly upset with me suggesting some of the titles in this.
Look, he had a different trajectory. He switched it to the monkey business. I liked his original trajectory. Therefore, I'm a little upset. I have to watch 6 movies having to deal with monkeys.
What have you got
Can't
against
wait for
monkeys,
Curious
David?
George.
It's actually 7.
7?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding.
David, you know that the things we tend to dislike in other people often reflect our own flaws?
Yes.
What are you saying?
So David's
Also-
going
Might be a
bananas.
monkey.
To my defense of this list against David, though, I think it is a pretty diverse list. It does not. It stays in one realm for a little bit, but then it takes some turns, and
We
I
see
think
monkeys a lot.
And I think some of these movies that I presume you have not seen, David, you will be happy that you saw them.
You
I'll
might
just
be
say
surprised, Reese.
You might be surprised, David.
I think I've seen most of these.
But not all of them. All right,
We're
anyway.
doing all of the original Planet of the Apes.
11 films, or however, there's like
gross.
6 of the originals and 3 of the new trilogy and 1 of the Mark Wahlbergs. Yeah, that's a lot. All right, that is the end of the episode. Stay tuned, guys. Planet of the Apes next week.
Ape
Bye.
gang.
I won't shine, I mean, no more. It's dangerous.